All right, we're back with Smarter Markets at FT's Global Commodity Summit in Lausanne. I'm joined by Simon Collins from HC Group. Just got to listen to your panel, Simon. Very fascinating, talking about a lot of the new technology coming into trading, what the future might be there. And I was wondering if you could start us off with maybe the current state of the art. You're a trader for a large number of years at Trafigura. You're now a tech investor, chair of HC Group. And I'm curious, where do you see the role of current technologies for traders?
So I think the biggest challenge for a trading company is effectively around volume. All trading companies want to push as much volume through the system as they can, as cheaply as possible, because the profit margins generally are really razor thin, right? I mean, we have been through an extraordinary period over the last few years where margins have been, larger than normal, maybe in the 3% to gross margin. But generally speaking, I can tell you from my experience, in the long term, margins will be compressed to 1%, right? So we need to process, or trading companies, they need to process data as efficiently as possible and as accurately as possible. So that's, I would say, their core focus at the moment.
And when you think of some of the new tools coming out, how accessible are those to the way current trading operates?
So I think there's a dilemma of the trading companies with respect to technology, right? So do they build their own, or do they bring in third-party applications, and then which third-party applications there are? Quite a few of the CTOs that I do regularly talk to within trading companies feel like they're bombarded with different solutions externally, and they also have a quite high level of hesitancy given the value of their proprietary data. So do they build their own, which is not their core competence, or do they take third-party applications, and then they have the issues around integration and data security? That's the key issue.
And these are very risk-focused organizations. As you said, data is very proprietary, very important. How do you think they're thinking about the security of their own data and willingness to allow it to be accessed by things like some of these large language models?
Well, I can tell you, some of the larger companies, obviously they're working over different jurisdictions, and we're looking at deglobalization of commodity markets generally. So even between their offices, they are restricting the data which is passing, between the Far East, the Middle East, Europe, and the US, right? So, there's a challenge there in terms of segregation data just internally, and they're very sensitive around that. And as to externally, well, my experience so far is that they'd be very, very keen to ingest more data, but to give data out is a completely different story.
Yeah. Is there anything that would get them more comfortable that their data was secure, or is that just a problem that's still being wrestled with?
Look, there are tools to do that, but to give you an idea of the sensitivity around that, with one project that I work on, which is ArtistWorks, which is market sheet for energy traders, we are giving them data, but we allow them to make their own calculations on the market sheet. Even those calculations they regard as being private and secure. So, we have worked around solutions. So we are able to give them, for example, a single instance of the product, which allows them to do those calculations without us being able to see them in the case of artists, right? So, but it goes to show you and highlights the level of sensitivity there is around these issues.
I could imagine a trader, the formulas they use to put the numbers together to give it the look that they want.
Sure. So they're calculating ARBs and diffs and things like that, which in some sense you could argue it shows a third party what they're looking at, what their strategy is. So they don't want that to see. But like I say, there are ways to specifically using cloud services to slice and dice that data so that they can continue to use the data sources that we have, but we're not able to see what they are actually calculating on the sheets.
Right. And speaking of how traders, use that information for part of their strategies, how do you tie it to their existing workflows? So, traders have tools they like to use. People get comfortable looking at data their way, using applications like IceChat, WhatsApp. I think you spoke in the panel a little bit about that as well. Like, how do you integrate all this together to make it more usable for the trader?
Yeah, so you've got multiple systems which the trader is using, and when you go into a trading office, you see with his tree of screens, 6 screens, 8 screens, right? And then you ask him, so why do you use that screen? And he'll say, oh, I need to see that piece of information, which is one cell of 100, etc. So they definitely have issues with that. The fallback is always Excel, right? Which was really actually, which in many ways was never built for that kind of purpose, particularly in terms of picking up price data and feeding that into an Excel sheet and then trying to share that with the team. So of course, the larger the company, the bigger the tools being built. But, generally my experience of a physical trader is he doesn't have a lot of good access to the system. And what he needs to do is he needs to fall back, and he goes back to the risk people and he asks them, okay, so what's my position? Where am I long? Where am I short? What's the VAR, etc. Because he doesn't have those tools with the existing applications that he has, whether those be in-house or third-party applications, to have good visibility over his trading position.
I think for people who are from the outside, that's often kind of amazing that the trader wouldn't have good visibility into his own book, his own positions. How common is that?
Look, from my experience, it's very common. I'm not saying they don't know the position. They do know their position, but they need to go back and check in detail with the risk people, because the systems that they use don't really give them the accurate information that they have. And frankly, they're not particularly user-friendly, right? So there's a lot of areas where, for example, not to use too much jargon, but to improve the UI and the UX, which is everything that we talk about in consumer goods when it comes to technology, is everything that we don't talk about when it comes to, software systems for businesses, right? So, when we look at some of these incumbent CTRMs, for example, they look like they're built from the 1980s and nothing changed since.
Yeah, it's a great point. At work, people are expected to adapt to the system, whereas in the consumer products world, the system has to adapt to the user or you'll never use it.
Very much, right? In the consumer world, it's one button press. And if you look at a Bloomberg terminal as an example, there's all multicolors and there's keys everywhere and it does different functions, right? And you need to read the manual in order to work out how it works. But
absolutely. I know earlier today on the CFO panel, there was a question about, the moderator brought up, several years ago, everyone was talking about blockchain. How's that going? I'm curious from your perspective, one, how did it go? And does it offer some lessons for, as we now talk about integrating AI and other types of technology into trader workflows? Are there lessons to be learned?
For sure. I think let's not talk about technology first. Let's talk about product and market fit, So a lot of, I think from an academic perspective, people could see where the advantages were of using a blockchain technology in terms of data sovereignty, proof of work, transfer of assets, and all these things. And I think there will be a day when this will come back. But what they forgot, I think, in that process is, providing systems that work for traders, producers, and consumers, right? And something got lost in the mix. Since then, I think there have been significant improvements. We were talking on the panel about Comgo, which has been really a success in the area of fintech around, payment systems and the way that commodity companies integrate and interact with their banks, which has been, it's a win for the market, I would say, and the commodities world, which is great. But I think we're going to see more of them. And again, as technology improves, and the speed to market gets better and we learn the lessons from previous mistakes, we'll start to see, okay, we need a product which is working for the market first, and actually nobody really cares about the underlying technology, okay? There are trust issues, okay? Those need to be addressed, but again, people have become used to cloud technology, so let's deal with cloud first. Let's deal with generative AI and blockchain technology as a secondary step,
And, one last question on, looking at product and fit. I think a lot of folks from the outside, they hear AI and like, so how's it going to make us money? But it sounds like a lot of the uses for technology is much more mundane. It's, running the back office flows, making sure that all these, collaterals being managed properly, positions are being managed properly. If you look at, where you would see the biggest opportunity to bring in technology to improve how our trading operations are working, where would you see that?
I think there are two distinct areas here. One is on the, let's say, back office or processing side, right? So, and we are seeing products come to the market using LLMs where basically they can scan through data, which is primarily coming through email. If you look at an operator's email inbox, they're getting like 400, 500 emails a day. It's crazy, okay? And a lot of those attachments. So they have to pick up that email, they have to read it, they have to see whether it's relevant. And as you know, there's probably copied to 50 other people. So was it even meant for them, okay? So, and then they have to think about the attachments. And then there's a security risk attached to that as well, okay? Because email is the most insecure thing. So what we're seeing is that there are bots being built which will basically read those emails and the attachments, assimilate the data, and then put it in the right place. So feed it, for example, if it's a contract, feed it into the CRM or make a comparative, right? So this is, I think, a way to significantly improve efficiency in the back office, and hopefully will actually reduce the number of errors. But there are issues around that. So, for example, if a contract says BLT +2, what does that mean? So the system needs to interpret that to say the date of the bill of lading plus 2 working days, right? So bill of lading is Friday. That means it's not pricing Sunday. It means that, so there's logic and there's learning that needs to be done. So that's, I think, really covers the operational point of view. And I think we'll see AI having a significant impact on that area in the very near future. On the trading side, I think the more efficient you can become through technology, the more granular you can become as well. One of the businesses I'm invested in and I'm a director for is Edge Petrol. And what we do is we do data analytics for petrol retail stations. So we sell our software to mom and pop operators, and basically we capture the purchase invoice, we capture the inventory data, and we capture the data at the till. So every time there's a fill up of a car, we capture that, right? So what we can do is we can calculate what we'll call a real-time mark-to-market of the petrol retail station. He can see exactly what his margin is at the price that he's showing on the pole at that given moment. And that data he didn't have before. So we're talking about real micro trading. And then beyond that, that for me is data analytics, but beyond that, we can start to use AI. So he can start to ask the system, okay, if I increase my price by 2 cents a litre or 3 cents a gallon, am I going to make more money or less money? And because we have that historic data and we have different scenarios, we can actually start to tell them, based on the historical data and the elasticity of demand in your area, if you increase the price, you're going to drive down volume and you're going to make less money. So what you're better off to do is to decrease the price by 1 penny a litre, and then you're going to start to see more, traffic being attracted to your site. So, it's just a very simple example of an area which is, only 4 products, 96, 98, diesel, super diesel, right? And very generic. But it goes to show you that if you use technology, you can dive deeper into the market, you can get more granular and you can be more involved. And as I raised on the panel just now, in the bunker market, we see that the traders, they need to be involved, but really it's not a great business for them because it's so small. And as a trader myself, we always had rules around, okay, what is the minimum tonnage that we would trade? Because we knew if we traded less than 100 tons of copper, we're actually not going to make money because the margin on the business is too small and the processing costs are too high. So if we can reduce the processing cost, we can significantly increase the market share that we have. If you think about it in the context of Google, right? How do they make money? They make money from ad revenue, which is 0.01 cent per impression, right? So we need to improve the efficiency of the commodities industry so that they can basically proliferate through the market better.